Hi everyone. Today we would like to talk about our project on wearable technology. The title of this project is Ethical Examinations of Current Personal Data Privacy Protections on Fitness Wearable Technologies. Our team members are Amanda, Kaiwen, Peter, Wanxin, Weihao, and Yi, and we're supervised by Professor Hurdy. Let's go over our presentation outline. We will first talk about what are fitness wearables and their current uses. Then we will address the advanced and potential future uses of wearables and their current privacy policies. And lastly, we will analyze the sufficiency of current privacy protections in two frameworks. Let's start by introducing what are fitness wearables. Fitness wearables are designed for two main purposes: to track real-time fitness metrics and to collect users' personal health data. Two popular examples of fitness wearables are Fitbit and Apple Watch. Fitbit is a fitness tracker that has been known for its sleek look and rich features. It can track your real-time physical activity and heart rate. You can record your calorie intake and compare this estimated amount to daily calorie allowance. It also collects data at night on heart rate, time spent in light and deep sleep, and wake-up time, and provides insights on the quality of sleep. Similar to Fitbit, Apple Watch can also monitor your fitness conditions, but it adds a number of additional features. It can generate electrocardiograms with its ECG app that you can provide to the doctors for review. It even uses algorithm for personalized medical tracking. A recent study attempted to use data from Apple Watch to estimate the proportion of volunteers with pulse irregularity and measure the concordance of pulse irregularity detections and ECG results. However, there remain significant limitations that prevent a broad application of these technologies. Next, we will look at the privacy policies of fitness wearables. Apple Watch and Fitbit both have comprehensive privacy policies regarding users' health data. For Apple Watch, the users can decide which information to be shared and whether to join the health-related research conducted by Apple. Any health and fitness data is encrypted, and data shared with Apple Research are stored in a system that meets the requirements of Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA. In addition, research participants can stop their participation at any time. Fitbit has a similar privacy policy about health data. It never sells users' personal information, and it shares this data only if the users agree to share them or for external processing and legal reasons.
Okay, so as mentioned before, fitness wearables are able to collect users' health data such as blood pressure and heart rate. And those information collected from wearables can be used in advanced ways to predict features that may or may not be the original intent of the data collection. Here are several examples. The first one is to detect illness and infections of the individual. Research shows that specific patterns of heart rate variations can indicate an infection of certain disease, even if the individual does not have any symptoms. Another advanced application is to predict future harm. For example, some wearables are able to detect the falling rate in real time with 93% accuracy just based on the physical information collected from that individual. Fitness wearables can also improve public safety. Some smartwatches are able to monitor or even to predict the blood alcohol content of the user. It provides an easy and reliable ways to determine how much alcohol you have consumed and can prevent dangers caused by overconsumption of alcohol, such as drunk driving. And it will introduce the current privacy policy status of health wearables in the next section.
So now let's take a look at current legislations for dealing with privacy on wearable technologies. So the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, so-called HIPAA, was established in 1996 and has been applied to protect patients' electronically transmitted personal information for the use of treatments. However, it is limited to companies that are involved with the health industry, and yet technology companies are not regulated by this act in collecting and storing biometric data. For example, companies like Fitbit and Apple both are not in the health industry, but the advent and popularity of fitness wearable gave them unregulated access to personal health information. when an individual uses their service, these companies can gain full access to the biometric data from their devices, and they can choose at their own discretion to regulate themselves with HIPAA or other privacy practice, or even none at all. So because of this problem, original laws have been passed several years ago in an effort to protect health data not covered by HIPAA. So Illinois became the first state to establish the Biometric Information Privacy Act, BIPA. It prohibits any unlawful collection and storing of biometric information, which requires companies to regulate their breadth of access and generation of biometric information. And Washington and Texas followed a similar path later on. However, these regulations are only regional and cannot be applied nationwide. So next, we'll discuss our metrics for this research project.
So since both HIPAA and BIPA, they do not really fully cover the biometric data protection, and that's why we would like to introduce two frameworks for the evaluation to our right to privacy and to evaluate if it's efficient of the protection. And this is how the two frameworks workflow works for the evaluation. First, we will see if the current measure passed the privacy test. If it did not pass the privacy test, then we would move on to the ethical frameworks to see if it's warranted by the ethical framework. So first, we would talk about the privacy test. The privacy test provides the useful metrics to evaluate the current measures protecting data acquired from the popular fitness wearables. And we can see the first test asked the right to be left alone. And both Apple and Fitbit, they ask for the consent before enabling the measurements for their apps or for their smart wearable devices. So we say it satisfies the test 1. The test 2 and test 3 require the right to be free from public disclosure and also the right not to be depicted in a false light. Apple and Fitbit, they did not make the data public, and also they try to make the data encrypted, and that's why they also satisfy the test 2 and test 3. However, it is less clear if the current measures of Apple and Fitbit pass the Huang 4th test, the right to control commercial appropriations of names and likeness. Since we don't know where the data flowed after the collections, and also we don't know if we have the right to the revenue of the information that we provide. However, we also notice that BIPA definitely satisfies the 4th test, but it is also a regional law, and that's why it did not provide the full protection for the entire region for US. If it did not satisfy the 4th test, we would like to see if it warranted by the ethical frameworks.
So we can use ethical frameworks to evaluate how we should move forward as a society ethically in light of the privacy test violations. Namely, is the use and collection of collection data from fitness wearables still warranted? And so we're going to look at 3 different ethical frameworks to evaluate from these perspectives what we should do moving forward. So a brief description of utilitarianism is that it emphasizes the greatest good for the greatest number. And it suggests that moral quality of an action should depend on the consequences of the action, regardless of the intent. However, it does not observe a hierarchy of pleasure. And so small pain and large pains are all counted as pain. Small pleasures and large pleasures are all counted as pleasure. In contrast, Kant's moral philosophy emphasizes the autonomy of the individual human, and that humans are rational beings with dignity and freedom, and this should not be taken away. We cannot be used as mere means, but our means are ends in themselves, and that being lied to takes away a person's dignity. Finally, motives take precedent when evaluating the moral quality of an action. And then we can turn to Aristotelianism. So in Aristotelian thought, we should pursue virtues by forming habits and building character. And it emphasizes that eudaimonia, or human flourishing, should be considered the highest good. And so with these ethical frameworks in mind, we can begin to think about what actions might be warranted based on the framework. And so in utilitarianism, given that privacy is being violated, a question we can ask with this framework is, should we continue to use fitness wearables, and should the data continue to be collected? Now, utilitarianism, since it emphasizes the largest amount of good for the largest amount of people, might encourage that these wearables should be used, and might even encourage mandatory usage of them, since the data that can be collected from these can do an immense amount of good for public health, especially when we consider times such as these where contact tracing can help epidemics subside. Additionally, the data under utilitarianism might be owned by the entities that can do the most good for the most number, which likely will be regulatory bodies or corporations. On the other hand, Kantianism might suggest that since our human dignity is being violated, as shown by the privacy test, our autonomy and freedom and our humanity is being stripped away. And so without the proper protection for this data, and we should not ethically continue to use these until the protections are in place, such that, namely, informed consent and full knowledge of where the data flows is established. Additionally, Kant would ask us to question the motive behind why users want this data and corporations want this data, and ensure that humans are not being used as a mere means in the large data economy. Finally, in Aristotelianism, Aristotle might ask us to question what the purpose, if the purpose of these fitness wearables brings about overall human flourishing, but also might have a problem with the violation of privacy, as that is not a good virtue for corporations or individuals to be pursuing. However, if the use of these technologies and their purpose, if the motive is to enhance human flourishing, Aristotle might ask us to work towards better privacy protections, but continue to use the fitness wearables.
Thank you, Amanda. Next, we want to analyze is using insufficiently protected health data ethically warranted in a time of crisis by the four-pronged privacy test and the three ethical frameworks. Our case study is government's advanced use of wearable technologies in an effort to prevent pandemics. The battle against the COVID-19 is a prominent example. China and South Korea deploy smartphones and apps to closely monitor suspected COVID-19 carriers, while China used healthcare code to track citizens' movement when they restrict their access to public transportation and public area. Korea went further to use wristbands to monitor those who try to leave home during the quarantine. Yuval, the author of A Brief History of Humankind, proposed a hypothetical experiment that government might mandate their citizens to wear tracking devices. This could be a watershed moment in the history of surveillance. These governmental programs clearly violated the privacy test. An individual has no way to opt out, and no consent are obtained from citizens prior to government deployment of these measures. Those violate Prong 1. Once an individual has contracted the virus, a detailed pandemic investigation of the carrier will be published publicly, including his or her past movements and other sensitive personal information, which violates Prong 2 and 3. Prong 4 is also likely violated as we have no idea about subsequent analysis of our collected data. While this project does not pass the privacy test, from a utilitarian point of view, the measures implemented are justified since we are sacrificing our personal privacy in exchange for the greater good, which is our immediate public health. From a Kantian perspective, the perspective of the population from a dangerous disease is a good motive. Therefore, this program are warranted to have a good moral quality. Additionally, the goal promotes overall human flourishing. So Aristotelian theory might also support measures implemented by China and South Korea. However, both Kant and Aristotle would likely be opposed to the loss of individual freedom and autonomy required by the implementation of this program. Next slide, please. So current protection for data from fitness wearables are not sufficient. Our team proposed ethical guidelines that should motivate future policy for protecting data from fitness wearables and possibly all biometric data, drawing from the three ethical framework we discussed earlier. The first one is regulation terms should disclose in a clear way and should be understood by the users. The second one is the data should be encrypted and cannot be leaked to third parties, with unexpressed proposed in a statement with the consent of users. The last one is individuals should never be threatened or feel uneasy to use the wearable devices. And the purpose of the research or the usage should be justified for the good cause. And after analyzing current measures and case study using the privacy test and ethical framework, we conclude that current legislation that aims to protect privacy in health data from fitness wearable remain insufficient. Therefore, new regulations that center on the type of data rather than institutional possession of data are urgently needed. Also, it is uncertain, especially in the times of crisis, what freedom should we tolerate losing for the greater good, our immediate public health. That's all for our presentation. Thank you for listening.